excerpt from Ghosts and Cyborgs. Lois saw the envy brewing in her sister's eyes. She swept a chunk of teased hair off her oily forehead and played with the jelly bracelets on her arm. Voice quivering, her sister stood between the makeshift curtains separating their beds in the shared room and told Lois about the crush Miss Myrtle's youngest grandson, Tony, had on her. The news wasn't a total shocker. Tony was their brother Theo's best friend, his only friend, since their days at the old church. While Raina and Pete were in Sunday school classes for the older kids, Lois spent countless hours as Theo and Tony's tag-along, brushed aside but thoroughly entertained by their goof-off sessions in Bible study, youth ushers meetings, and children's choir. Tony teased her for being freckled and pigeon-toed, but Lois noticed the dreaminess clouding his eyes when he looked at her, how he fumbled with his words every time he taunted her. Things were different by their freshman year in high school. Like Raina, who failed to get asked to her senior prom, Tony had become a loner and an oddball. He traipsed through the hallways, looking lost without Theo, who was in his last year of middle school and ate lunch by himself in the cafeteria every day. Lois, on the other hand, had shed her awkward preteen years and was among the most well-liked girls in school. Her grades were less than average, but she clung to the sociable crowd that always drew attention. She was the perky cheerleader, fashionable homecoming queen, and a shameless gossiper who won people over with her freckles-turned beauty specs and casual conversation. She also shared a common interest with the majority of girls in her freshman class, Pete, Tony's older brother and the neighborhood legend. Pete was striking, popular, and multi-talented. At 6'3", he had biceps that looked like chocolate melons. He was a star varsity basketball player, but Lois and his herd of fans especially admired his photography. Lois dismissed Raina's leak about Tony's feelings for her, but her curiosity never waned. She was touched by the way he accepted being in Pete's shadow and started looking forward to second and fourth Fridays of the month when Tony slept over at their house as Theo's company. Things happened fast between them. Everything was a blur of empty pizza boxes, fake IDs, kiwi-flavored Mad Dog 2020, and one late night of Truth or Dare games during her 15th birthday sleepover. She and Tony spent a lot of time with each other after that. Hickeys turned into clothes burning, which turned into fingering and jack-offs, which led to full-blown sex. They got sloppy, flirting in public and leaving condom wrappers in Lois's basement. It was like magnets were lodged inside their bodies, compelling them to fasten themselves together as often as time allowed. Sometimes they had conversations with their mouths closed when they finished. Their passion, severe and unstructured, was a gift they both quietly and readily accepted, a relentless force developing them for what was to come. When the rumors about Pete and Theo started, Lois knew it would ruin things between her and Tony. They were both surprised to hear about their brothers being spotted in Pete's car together, half-clothed and erect, with racy photos of Theo found in the back seat. Lois was warm with pride for Theo, who'd never shown an interest in girls. But Tony was clearly embarrassed and angry, as if he'd been cheated out of a lifetime of brotherly advice from Pete on how to be a man's man. He ended his friendship with Theo, which made it harder for Lois to see him, and when Pete's sudden disappearance caused a community panic, it completely thwarted their secret vows. Sir and Justine forbade Lois and her siblings to go anywhere outside of school and church, an agreement they all assumed would end once Pete turned up. Weeks later, someone found Pete's headless, bullet-ridden body along the railroad tracks at the end of their street. Rumors on the detail of his death erupted. Many claimed it was a hate crime in response to his questionable sexuality. Others swore it was part of a gang initiation. But the majority believed he crossed the wrong cop, got shot multiple times, and was unable to avoid an incoming train that took his head. Reports from several witnesses surfaced, but there wasn't enough evidence at the scene of the crime to keep the case open. Lois found herself on the receiving end of Tony's withdrawal and growing hostility after his brother's memorial. Nothing and no one could get through to him. He developed a shadow that was eating away at him from the inside out. Where are you in there? I'm here, Lo. No, you're not. Their last conversation before Tony's move was brief and stilted. Lois swallowed hard, willing the smell of old nacho cheese from the cafeteria to go away before the heaving returned. She pressed up against the lockers, liking the distraction of a padlock digging into her lower back. The shine in Tony's penny copper skin was gone. He smiled the way he did when Lois told him she was pregnant. His tight chin and the emptiness in his eyes were painful. Lois knew it was over. She was surprised at how calmly the revelation came. There'd be no accompaniments to the doctor's office or talks about money for an abortion. There'd be no joint announcement to her parents. She'd have to tell them alone and risk the consequences. There wouldn't even be a cordial friendship for the baby's sake, because staring at each other in the hallway, they both knew Tony could only handle the option that wouldn't kill what little was left of him. He'd go away for a while. Their bodies touched. It wasn't a hug. Lois stepped into Tony and they folded around each other. He smelled wild and musty like he hadn't showered in days. The bush of hair growing past his neckline tickled Lois's wrist. She playfully tugged at his ducktail and circled the inside of his earlobe with her thumb, pretending to check for dirt. She felt him let her pull away first, and before her face crumbled, she stomped down the hall toward the school's exit doors. She couldn't help but look back. He was still smiling.